Teachers who quit. When was the moment you realized that it wasn't for you? Taught at a juvenile delinquent school, when the accusations of children required no proof or consistency, and to be exonerated took divine intervention. When a kid with a violent history, a mile wrong swings a stapler at you, gashing your forehead, because he was dead too, then as you restrain him, until help arrives, you hurt his wrist, then your school believes his story that I dropped the N-bomb to him, which caused the outburst. Even though 2 other staff members saw the entire thing. And the school called the police and tried to have me charged for assault. When I realized that I was being more micromanaged every year. I expected a lot of oversight when I was a new teacher. I actually had more people watching my every move and every word, after a master's degree and 15 years experience. I never had a single complaint. Parents and students loved me, even requested me. Administrators needing to justify their jobs were constantly in my classroom, or calling pointless meetings to discuss pointless things. I spent less and less time teaching, and more time filing out meaningless forms, responding to emails, and sitting through meetings. In a meeting with other English teachers, an admin said, "6th grade will no longer be reading novels. It's not statistically proven to improve test scores. If reading doesn't improve testing, your testing is wrong." There wasn't one defining moment that made me decide to quit. But after the decision was made, there was a moment that solidified it. There was this kid. To say he wasn't bright is an understatement. He probably should have been diagnosed at some point as special education, but never was. He was also an asshole. I taught 8th grade math, and he literally couldn't even multiply. So I would give him the same tests I gave my special education students. He'd usually fail anyway, but not as bad. Anyhow, he never figured out he was given a different test. When I made the different versions, they were essentially the same questions, just with much easier numbers to work with. Well, one day, I was grading his test, and he missed every single question. Weird thing was, he had all the correct answers to the normal test. However, he showed no work. So there was literally no way with the numbers he had, he could get the answers he got. So I called his mom in. I had to stay like an hour later than normal to meet with her. I presented her the evidence, which most people would find pretty convincing. She just turned to him and said, "Did you cheat?" He of course denies it. Then she looks at me and says, "You say he cheated, he says he didn't. I don't know who to believe." I got up and left right then. Parents are the reason most teachers leave the profession. They tend to make the teacher the enemy quite often. Plus, they don't want to acknowledge that their child can be a little shit. 2 16-year-old kids were facing each other. I had the classroom seats in a U shape, and were silently challenging each other to fight while I was in the middle of a lesson. They suddenly jumped up from their chairs, and came at each other with 8-inch knives with me in between them. I was pretty built, having been a stonemason's apprentice in college to help pay my way through, but these kids were both bigger than me. Without thinking, I grabbed each by their collars and shouted, "Sit down." I didn't start shaking until that evening. I was done a week later. So many things. Figured I got paid $9 per hour to handle special needs in the future of our country, and other teachers didn't have it that much better. Watched an entire class plagiarize an easy essay because they couldn't fathom how to write something original. Turned in a girl for skipping class, only to have to write a police report on why I didn't call her a stupid bitch and hit her. She never got punished for that. Observed a kid who I knew had to be a psychopath convince a freshman to steal a phone. Freshman got caught, and 10 days in juvie. Psychopath walked free. You're gonna have to pay teachers a lot more to deal with that crap. First, I'll tell you the moments when I nearly quit. When a kid with serious mental health issues stabbed another kid with a pencil, and I was told to just keep a better eye on him. When a parent complained about me, but I wasn't told the nature of the complaint, just reprimanded, generally. When 16-year-old boys hit on me, and I actually considered going out drinking with them, because I had no social life. But the moment, looking back, was when I was hospitalized with exhaustion, and my amazing boyfriend, who had been coming over, marking tests and proofing papers every evening for months, lay down on the cold hard hospital floor and slept beside me in case I was upset overnight. I realized that I wanted a life with him, not a dull existence where I poured all of myself into my job and had nothing left for us. I loved teaching, but it wanted all of me. Dawn till midnight, 7 days a week prepping, marking, planning. I quit. I got a better job. I married that amazing guy, and we have an amazing daughter. On weekends we go to the park and play. I had a student, maybe 11 or 12, sitting with me and having pizza. I asked how her life was going, and she says, well, my dad's a drug dealer, so he's always got people coming over to sell or buy drugs, or play cards, so I can't sleep. My mom's dying, because she has a hole in her heart and they can't fix it. And I have a boyfriend, but I'm afraid to tell my mom because she'll tell my dad and he'll beat me. Just normal, like this was everyday stuff. So, as a mandatory reporter, I go to my dean of students and tell him all this, and he just gets irritated and goes, yeah, but that doesn't excuse her behavior. That's when I knew I was done. I had a 6-year-old pull a knife on me while screaming, I will kill you. This was the culmination of a lot of various incidents with the same kid. What was most infuriating was the parents claiming they had the sweetest little boy, and that we, the school, must be liars for saying otherwise. Eventually, he was transferred to a special school after we filed a report on the various incidents. I felt really bad for the kid, because when he wasn't freaking out over something, he would be the sweetest guy asking a ton of questions and participating in the activities, but he was highly prone to snapping into hysteria. The incident with the knife happened in this after-school setting, where the kids go to play and have fun. Apparently another kid had done something he disliked, so he was kicking and spitting on him when I pulled him away. He ran straight to the drawer and found a little kitchen knife. Due to his size, it was pretty easy to wrestle out of his hands though, so no harm done. I guess dealing with shitty parents was what made me change my career. I worked in a high needs behavior class. I got hit, punched, scratched, and spat on daily, but every day I went back and did my best for those kids. I was so battered and bruised that my husband wouldn't shop with me anymore, because people would stare, and sometimes even comment to him about his mistreating me. It was sickening, but I loved my job and every one of those kids. One day, was called to the office to talk. It was Christmas time, and things weren't great at home. And as anyone with kids knows, the holidays makes children especially high-strung, so things were also wild in the classroom. My boss said, you seem awfully stressed, and I thought how nice of her to notice, so I agreed that yes, I was struggling. She said, you have 6 weeks to sort it out, or I'll have to let you go. I was crushed. It literally broke me. 6 weeks to get less stressed, how does that even work? I found myself just showing up to show up, and I realized that wasn't fair for me or for the kids. 6 weeks later I get a call back to the office. I am congratulated on the amazing turnaround, and sent back to class. I was baffled. I was more upset and stressed than ever, and they congratulate me. More and more I showed up to work just for the paycheck. One day I just decided, screw it, I wasn't a teacher anymore. I was a robot fearful of showing any negativity. I quit that week. Never went back to teaching. I stopped when my annual review with the new program dean focused on the 10% of student reviews that were negative, rather than the 90% that were positive. There are too many aggravations working against teachers. At the least, the administration has to have your back. When the corporate job offered me 3 times the salary, and a 12% annual bonus. Now, my kids can afford to go to the college where dad used to teach. Not me, but my wife. She was an engineer at a good company on the East Coast. Left because she wanted more rewarding work. Soon after, she is doing clinicals at a school on the rough side of our hometown. She was the kind of student teacher who showed up early, ate lunch with the kids, stayed late, and followed up with parents. Anyway, some months in, she has repeatedly had trouble with some students. They came from troubled homes, and brought a lot with them into the class each day. She tried working with them one-on-one, working with the administration, and the parents. More than one set of parents said, stop calling, and the administration told her to send them to the principal's office, where they could sit all day and focus on the good kids. Eventually, the futility set in. She was the only one who cared. Not the kids, administration, other teachers, or even their parents. She finally wore herself out after a couple years, with no support at work, and no one appreciating her efforts, except me of course. She's back in aerospace now. I hope this thread gets going. Teachers are undervalued, especially in the States. Edit. Some people seem a bit miffed. I know there are indeed shitty teachers out there. Ones there just for a paycheck, glorified babysitters, just crappy humans. But a lot of teachers in California are trying desperately to educate children to break the cycle of poverty. They are constantly buying supplies out of their own checks and starting at pay equal to minimum wage. They are working outside of their paid hours with no recognition. Budgets are often cut. There are also teachers that get paid decent wages and are incredibly happy with their jobs. My point is that teachers are here to educate children that make up the future. They should be paid well and have every resource available instead of fighting tooth and nail for basic supplies. I taught high school English for 10 years before finally quitting for the corporate sector. Honestly, it was a lot of small things that built and built until I realized it wasn't where I wanted to be. The largest of those small things is stifling focus on standardized testing. I lost weeks and weeks to test prep at every grade level. I couldn't teach novels I loved teaching because I ran out of time. And those standardized tests are useless. They prove nothing, but offer schools a pat on the back for the high performance results. Which, mind you, do not transfer at all to college success. And too many public schools force the idea of college. Why? Is it because it's for the betterment of the kids? Hell no, it looks good on their graduation statistics. But there is nothing wrong with not going to college. And I'd tell that to my AP students, as much as my kids with the 12 average for the year. You have a 3.8 GPA and want to be a plumber? You go. You be a plumber. Duck. You'll make more than the rest of us. I was once told I shouldn't do so many lessons where discussion between students was required. No more Socratic seminars. There had to be more material that could be graded. How ducked up is that? I can't encourage discussion in an English literature class because I can't grade the kids on it. And don't even get me started on quantitative versus qualitative. Teachers are being held accountable for students who don't improve, regardless of anything else. Jimmy doesn't come to school for 3 months because he's ducking off, and then shows back up and fails the midterm. That's on you, buddy. Should have taught him better for the 2 weeks you had him at the start of the year. I eventually got tired of the constant hurdles and stupid state requirements. People said, yeah, but you get a pension. Unions. Summers off. So the duck what? I'm in corporate now. And I make $31,000 more than I did teaching with a yearly bonus and a matching 401k with profit sharing. And bish, please, I never had a summer off. I worked 2 jobs to make ends meet from June to September. Most teachers do. What kills me is that I love teaching. I loved my students, and I was good at what I did. I was good at encouraging kids to take risks with their learning, and I didn't penalize them for making mistakes. That's how you learn. You don't learn shit from multiple choice, and you never will. I miss my kids. I miss watching them go from hating a piece to being eager to discuss it. Even my lowest level students could show me something, even if it wasn't on paper. It wasn't my students that killed my love for teaching. And I did have kids throw chairs or get into fights, or tell me to duck off, all of that. That was doable. And I did it. The stupid, useless requirements, and the idiotic state testing, the abysmal pay for the hours and hours I put in. That killed my love for teaching. And it's killing plenty of other young, passionate educators. I miss my students. I miss everything about teaching, when I was allowed to teach. Now? It's not teaching. If you want to teach, get into higher education or a private school. Do yourself a favor and stay out of public education in the United States. It doesn't exist anymore.